This is the latest edition of the Kudilar exclusive original diagnostic reports on the racist hysteria being operated currently this week against the migrants, and migrants are being used as the kind of imagery to represent all the people who are affected by the racist propaganda and racist agenda being pursued by the regime fronted by Boris Johnson in Britain. Now, the migrants have been featuring on British prime time television slots, as happened yesterday, Monday, on BBC breakfast program, and it was imitated today as predicted and predictably by Sky News, whose counterpart corresponding breakfast slot is monopolized by Kay Barley, and her program had this slot given to chasing a tiny small boat by a bigger vehicle in the channel. And from that bigger vehicle in the channel, this reporter, so-called on Sky News, repeatedly hurled words in the direction of these people on the little boat. It is absolutely impossible that they understood a word she said, but that is the camera angle. They were showing her in the foreground, and in the distant ground are the people in the dinghy, dilapidated dinghy, shaking dinghy. Now, there is no way, there is no reasonable, intelligent, dignified, coherent, logical, rational way that was a productive engagement for various reasons. First of all, literally, there could not be any meaningful exchange of any intelligent, relevant policy matter or content. And the second thing is that was the wrong thing to run. The Kay Barley slot should have run an intelligent series of investigative reports and interviews about why the migrants were being given this kind of prominence in the propaganda by Boris Johnson, who led the campaign on Monday of hatred and stupidity against the victims of famine and hunger and war and destabilization, as we have been saying. Now, all the people that we have covered have been aware of what we're saying, because this is on live television and they are watching, although we are not live feeding to them, but they are watching this. We know that because of some of the responses we have observed. We are not broadcasting to hundreds of live kind of links, but the point is that when it goes live, it is seen by all the monitors, and that is the assumption. We shall be including numbers of followers later, but this is not the main point. The main point is to get the facts on the air, and this is what we're doing. And the Kent County Council, which is the main local county council facing the channel, and it is the channel port based within Kent that actually is the place where the migrants or the vehicles or vessels or whatever reach when they cross the channel from the other side, from France. So therefore, Kent County Council, for simply geographical reasons, has been at the receiving end of these arrivals. And the arrivals in significant, specific location have been mainly the children, as we said earlier, before, in the previous editions. Children, anyone aged under 18. The Kent County Council yesterday, their media office denied, when I spoke to them, they denied that they were in any way party to any racist hatred aimed at the migrants or any racist campaign using the migrants. Words to that effect. And they wanted me to give them the material that I had actually based my question on. And the materials I had based my question on initially appeared, or I had seen, in the Morning Star Online on their website. And they had commented on Kent County Council in an editorial about this racist hysteria against the migrants. But the Morning Star, being the morning scar, as I have called it for the last 10 years or so, because it perverts and distorts basic facts. It distorts the basic facts ideologically from the left-wing standpoint as a corresponding performance of the corruption and criminality in retaliation to the right-wing crooks and corruption and racists like the Daily Mail, the Sun, the Express, and so on. So the fact that it is a communist Morning Star or the Communist Party controlled Morning Star does not exonerate it of the obligation to tell the truth, but it doesn't tell the truth. It always distorts. Even so, I give them acknowledgement, factual acknowledgement for running daily on at least 6 days a week, because they combine the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, in one edition. So 6 days every week, normally, they appear. And 6 days of the week, the Communist Morning Star runs at best a placard, a left-wing placard, which is most often, most frequently based on a slogan, carries a slogan. So it is more frequent than the Socialist Workers' Party. The Socialist Workers also do the factory-made banners, but they appear less frequently because the events that they have to flaunt their factory-made banners take place less frequently. They should take place more frequently and more genuinely, but that is the reality of British politics, so-called, where the left-wing, two outlets, one is the Socialist Workers and the other is the Communist Morning Star. These are the two that show any banners that are opposed, at least on the face of it, literally opposed to the right-wing, racist, brazenly pro-imperialist facade and status quo maintained by the Fleet Street newspapers, London-centric newspaper, Little England newspapers, and their counterparts in broadcasting. Now, the counterpart position, lead position, is now taken over by the BBC, which has become the British fascists, racists, organ and platform. And it is also the case that when they said that they were terminating the contract with Andrew Neil, I mean, everyone published or posted a lot of apparently sympathetic comments about Andrew Neil and how he was a victim of the BBC. Now it seems that Andrew Neil is being lined up to be made the Conservative chair of the BBC, thus completing the complete abolition of the BBC as a slogan. It used to have the slogan that it was objective. And the man who is credited, to what extent it is actually factually true, is yet to be established. At least we haven't found any extensive independent corroboration. But the essential line is that the BBC was founded by Reith, and his motto was for the BBC to tell the truth. Now, BBC, in the evidence that I have seen for the last 70, 80 years of its actual operation, the BBC has not been telling the truth. It has been telling partial truth, and it has been an organ of the powers. And all the big issues that matter to safety and security of ordinary people, the BBC has betrayed the people, including on nuclear proliferation and the secrecy surrounding the nuclear proliferation and other warmongering and war trading activities. So this is not the edition where we should discuss those activities by the BBC in detail, but to say that the fact that it is being reported that Andrew Neil is now in the frame to be made chair of the BBC, the next chair of the BBC, is a confirmation that weirdos and racists and imperialists and warmongers are completing the takeover of the institutions. That was the page, the manifesto that we discussed before the 12th of December election. The manifesto, the subtle lines hidden in 2 pages or 1 page. We discussed it at length online on the Khudila platforms. That manifesto was absolutely correctly identified as being the plot for the fascist and racist takeover of the British institutions. So that is the next stage. The parliament they've taken over because of the garden gnome Jeremy Corbyn giving over to all the key levers for victory to Boris Johnson at the 12th of December 2019 poll. And then that means that Boris Johnson has got 80 plus MPs in the House of Commons where it matters. And then now the BBC is doing the same thing, capitulating to Boris Johnson, and he is going to abolish the mandate, the idea that the BBC was supposed to be objectively talking truth to the nation. The other thing that they're going to do is to abolish the so-called independence of the judiciary. We shall come to that in due course, but that is the other plank of the fascistic takeover of the British institutions or whatever remains in British society. The propaganda today, for the second day in the week, aimed at the migrants coming from Calais to Dover and in Kent, is part of that fascist takeover of British state. Now this is ridiculous because it is fascist takeover and there is no evidence that the Labour Party is even aware of it. The Labour Party's propaganda man, who has issued a threat that he's publishing another book, Owen Jones, has commented on Kay Barley's treatment of the migrants as entertainment. He had nothing to say about the sinister political and racist agenda underlying that particular featuring of that event by Kay Barley, the main spot on Sky News in the morning part of the schedule. So why is the Labour Party dead? Because the Labour Party, contrary to the myths that it has been cultivating and being aided and abetted in doing so by the stooges recruited from the so-called working class and from the so-called left, and in the case of Tower Hamlets, Newham and other places where the population, the demography, the electoral population contains significant numbers of people from Africa and Asia who are more likely to be voting for the Labour Party than for the Conservatives. The Labour Party has never been faithful to the pledge, to the duty it has owed to the general public, society, to campaign for fairness and justice, genuinely campaign for fairness and justice, but also the same thing, that to oppose racism and discrimination. The Labour Party has no policy position that fundamentally has altered the pro-racist lurch that has been taking place from the 1960s onward in the UK's central legislation and the central kind of constitutional movements. So regardless of when Britain leaves the so-called EU or when it had joined the European Common Market, the fact is that despite all the pronouncements and all the treaties and everything, the Labour Party has been colluding with the conservatives, or rather the racists, in relation to the people from Asia and Africa. And these people coming from 4 countries, in today's latest main report, it says that these people coming from Calais or through France in the boats or in the last 1 week have been mainly found to be coming from Syria, Afghanistan, Iran, and probably 1 or 2 people from Pakistan. Now, these people are not, of course, all the people that want to come to Western Europe from North Africa or through other kind of channels that they are crossing, channel meaning routes. The devastation caused by the ongoing war and hunger and starvation created by war and famine is absolutely as bad now as it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And the Labour Party has been dying for the last 10 years. It has been dying in ideological terms, in terms of the obligations it has had since the 1930s. But the Labour Party as a political force was supposed to be revived under the facade of the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn. But during the leadership of Corbyn, Corbyn failed, absolutely singularly failed to even mention racism as a major problem. So we shall be talking about Corbyn, Kent County Council, and others in the next edition, which will be part 6 later this evening. So this is the introduction, which is coming to 1944 GMT on Tuesday, the 11th of August, 2020.